Hey guys, welcome back to our weekly crypto wrap up. I know today is Tuesday, which typically we have our videos pushed out every Sunday, but I know that there was some very important news this morning with the CPI data. And so I wanted to wait before we had opportunity to publish the video to see how the market was going to react. And we were in for quite a surprise. So, although the CPI data that was produced this morning showed that we actually had a little bit of decrease for the overall numbers that we were looking for, the shocker to the market was in certain subsectors within the economy, we saw an increase, for example, in both the food aspect, which is how much you would typically pay for food, as well as in other needed essential things that we need to survive. So that sent a shockwave through all of the markets itself. We saw the dollar index rebound, and we also saw all of risk on assets, crypto, our traditional markets, and gold and silver respond in a negative fashion, something that we have been waiting for to continue our bearish activity after we've experienced a bit of a relief rally last week with the dollar rebounding. So today what we're going to look at is how that move essentially affected Bitcoin and other altcoins, and is it playing into the plans that we have been expecting when it comes to continuation with bearish activity. So guys, every week we always start with Bitcoin dominance, and as you see here, what we were waiting for was price to come down into this area of support here at the 39% level. And what we got last week was a big bullish engulfing candle, which took out all these previous days, which is in effect a bit bullish. And we since sideways consolidated until we went to a level of support, which was, a level of resistance that was previous support. And we got this reversal candle here as of today because of the data that came out from the CPI. So when we look at this and what this essentially means, as we discuss every week, when you have a bullish move on Bitcoin dominance, what you tend to see what happens is you see Bitcoin tend to outperform altcoins. So now this is a major week considering that we have the CPI data and we have the Ethereum merge underway with no specific date in mind, but just a matter of what happens to the network as it experiences the upgrade. So when we're looking at what's going on here with this price action, with this reversal that we see going on right here, until we see prices really break down below this level of support, we could, essentially make another run up. And we'll take a look at that one in comparison to what happens to the dollar index, as well as when we jump over to the altcoin index chart. And so essentially what that means is the alts could continue to suffer while Bitcoin might sideways consolidate or drift a little bit lower, and or we see a deeper relief rally with Bitcoin. It's not to say that that is exactly what's going to happen. We know that the trend overall is still bearish, but if Bitcoin dominance is wanting to reverse, then we can see less of pain in the markets with Bitcoin in comparison to the alts. So guys, we want to see if we are going to hold this level of support right here and revisit this area and continue lower, or if it's going to hold and we try to make another push back up higher. And that's going to really come on the back of what happens with the dollar for the rest of this week. So guys, that is Bitcoin dominance. We're literally in between support and resistance right now. So we're going to see where is price going to drift us to, given that we've rejected this area of resistance. All right, guys. So now we're going to jump over to our altcoin index chart. And we have been paying attention to this. We know that the structure is very much similar to Ethereum. And what we saw was what we were looking at last week was we wanted to see a little push back up into these areas of resistance in which we failed from. And that's essentially what happened. We got that bearish price action where we pulled down, but we're still hanging in there in a little bit of area of support. However, we want to see what's going to happen given that we had this major bearish price action, which is also noticeable on the Bitcoin dominance because of what happened with the CPI data today. are we going to hold this, or are we going to just kind of consolidate in this area before we dip lower? And that's what we are essentially looking for, which is why this arrow we've had here for a couple of weeks, we were expecting this push up, which is this arrow that we see here. And we essentially got that, but we failed to climb higher. And instead, now we are trading lower. So we want to see how this plays out, given that this is the altcoin index. Ethereum has a big threshold on how this performs, given that the merge is this week. So we want to pay attention to price action. So guys, that is the altcoin index. We made our push higher, but we failed to go and create a new high. And now we're steadily trending lower with expectation to come down and retest support. So guys, stay tuned to see what happens with the altcoin index. And now we're going to jump over to Bitcoin. And guys, we know that we have been paying attention to this falling wedge that essentially broke a couple of weeks ago. And we experienced some sideways consolidation, considering that we dropped to a level of support without creating a new low. We had a retest of this low, and we made a push higher, back testing the falling wedge that we experienced. And we got this nice bearish engulfing pattern. And so as of right now, we're still sitting in a little bit of consolidation. But given that we had this major rejection here in this area, I would expect maybe a little bit more consolidation before we come back and actually retest this level, with the expectation that we start to drift lower. I know that sounds really scary. We've been going down for quite a bit. So we don't want to see that. But giving all of the economic data from a macro standpoint, giving what the charts are telling us, we have not completely flushed out of this bearish cycle that we've been experiencing. And only the smart money is taking profits on relief rallies. So that's something to keep in mind, guys. We've been experiencing nothing but relief rallies for the last few months because the macro economic data that is happening across the world weighs into how investors feel about risk on assets. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at a chart, regardless of these relief rallies that we're getting, understand what the overall trend is. So that is Bitcoin right now. We know that support is at 18,124. We got close to there before we reversed and we ran higher. And as of this point right now, we're still in this same area that we were consolidating in a couple weeks ago, until we broke out, and then we had this reversal pattern where we had this bearish engulfing pattern. So essentially, we are in between two major areas of support and resistance, up above at 25K and below at 18K. Depending on how the dollar performs is going to give us further direction if we are going to continue this drift lower. So keep an eye on that, guys. And so now we're going to look at Ethereum. And given that, the merge is coming, we had this nice rally, something that we've all partaken in. And since then, we've failed to continue to go higher. And much like what we saw with the altcoin index, we have not created a new high. And instead, we've been kind of just sideways consolidating, getting hit with resistance every time we attempted to push higher. And so currently right now, we are just sitting in this same range bound area of a little area of support that we've revisited before. We retested, came lower, and we pushed higher. And so because we're sitting, once again, between these two areas, this is going to be determined by what happens with Bitcoin as well as the DXY. So guys, we want to see if this area of support is going to hold, or are we going to dump lower? And that's once again determined by the dollar index. So given that this area holds, if we get above these areas, then we would want to revisit this area of 2K. But given that we're in a bearish structure, I'm expecting this to not hold long before we get continued bearish price action. So I'm not touching Ethereum this week because of the merge. And so we could experience quite a bit of volatility. So I would say just watch, pay attention to what type of price action we will receive on Ethereum. as we go to experience the update on the network, where we're going to be switching from proof of work to proof of stake. And it's something going to be very interesting as we jump into the next chart as to what happens when this upgrade has occurred. So now what we happen to see, which is one of our clients' choice for coins today, was with Ravencoin, which is a proof of work coin. And so we happen to see in the past week these rallies in proof of work coins, as these are still mineable coins and profitable for miners to come into this area. So what we happen to see with Ravencoin, as we look here from a technical standpoint, even though it's going against the trend with crypto itself, because of its specific utility, investors have fled to Ravencoin because it still can be mined. And so what we happen to see here is we had a rounded bottom here and a retest at a area of support before we broke out. And so currently sitting above the level of support at now $4.07. I'm sorry, 4.7 cent. That's always fun. Okay, so now what we've done is we kind of tagged this area at our 23.6% retracement on the fib level. And what we happen to see is, amazingly, given that we had a bearish day overall in the crypto space yesterday, all we did was retest that same area of support that we broke out of, and now we're making an attempt to push higher. So given what's happened there and looking at previous price history, we could see, something like some consolidation in this area. And given what's going on with the network, we could, once again, like I said, retest and or even visit this area. Now, is that to say that that's ideal? I want to see what happens to price when we retest this area first, given that the market is still bearish. However, this is a special case scenario because of the fundamentals. And that's one thing to keep in mind, guys, when it comes to crypto, that there are coins that tend to go against the trend. For example, if there are fundamentals driving it, and the fundamentals essentially will accelerate price action based on what we happen to see on the charts. And that's what happened here. We had, before this news came out and we got the follow through price action, Ravencoin had essentially made a bottom and began to rally before it did a back test right here in this area, and it sprung higher right to the nearest area of resistance. And so now we're just consolidating and retesting before it makes a decision if it's going to go higher. So I'm keeping an eye on proof of work coins, which are some of the ones that we're going over today, to see how investors and or specifically miners feel about the upgrade to the network with Ethereum, and if they're going to look at alternative chains that are still profitable to be mined, like Ravencoin. So guys, that is Ravencoin. And so now we're going to jump over to Ethereum Classic, which was one that we happened to be looking at a few weeks ago. So Ethereum Classic was a token that, for those who have been in crypto for quite a while, we received this once we had the fork in the network for Ethereum a couple of years ago, and it had performed well when that initially happened. And so what we've been experiencing now here just in the last few weeks, we have been consolidating. And given that, we still have this really nice structure here, we have failed to close lower on multiple occasions. So what does that tell us? This structure surprisingly looks almost like Ravencoin. Is if we are going to hold this level of support that we failed to close lower and continue, is it possible that we get that continuation with Ethereum Classic like we're getting with Ravencoin? Yeah, that is very possible, because we have yet to come and retest the $52 level. Given that that is a pretty good move, it's not to say that this can happen in a day or if it's going to happen this week, but depending on how, once again, investors and miners respond to how they feel about the switch from proof of work to proof of stake, how will it affect other tokens that can still be mined? So those are something to keep an eye on, given that we do continue to hold this level of support at $36, $37, then we want to see a pop to 52. We want to keep our eyes on Ethereum Classic. And so now, also another token that was brought to us by our clients, which was Flux Token. I heard about this token a little while ago. I haven't seen much of it because it doesn't have a long price history. But as long as we have some data, we can take a look and see what's going on. So now, much like Ravencoin, we had this rounded bottom, and those who are familiar with certain patterns, reversal patterns, you can tell if price is going to continue to run. And so what have we seen here is we've seen price round out at a bottom at about 39.40 with multiple retests of support established to give us an ideal understanding that for now the bottom is in on this token. And what we are attempting to do is to push higher back up to this $1.48 or a psychological level of $1.50. And so what is struggling to do now is it's not holding the momentum. And a lot of that has to do with just the market responding in itself to what we received as far as feedback from the CPI data, hence what's happened with Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as the dollar index. So currently right now we are under this area of support that we have been holding that was taking us up to the $1.46 level. And as you see here, we barely missed the retest. So we would need some more data or price action more so to get us back above here so that we can actually get the retest that we're looking for. Now, that's to say, if we hold these levels in which where we are now and we make that push, that'd be great. However, if we, continue to drift lower, then there are some areas of support to look at down there. Now, given what's going on here, and we've had a handful of rejections, we just want to see how this level of support here responds, because essentially we are back testing these areas right here in which we broke above right in here. So guys, remember what I always say about when it comes to trading and looking at the charts and making good risk to reward decisions is you want to get the value areas of support and a resistance to enter your trade. And or if you're investing, you want to get the best possible area of value, hence the cheapest areas to buy into a particular token if you plan on holding it. So guys, we want to see what happens here in this area. If we drift lower, then that's just not a good look at all. However, if we are able to sustain here and consolidate, and we make one more push to actually retest the actual level, then that's what I would be looking for. And once again, that's going to be dependent and on Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as the dollar index. So guys, that is Flux. And so now we are going to revisit one of our favorite tokens, which is Litecoin. And, it's one that we had pulled up here a few weeks ago. And essentially, it's doing exactly what we were looking at. So when we drew these arrows out here as of last month, we were expecting some sideways consolidation, and we finally got it. We got to retest this as $64 level. However, we failed to close above it, and currently right now, we are sitting on support. And so Litecoin has always been one of those coins that consolidates in ranges for an extended period of time. And so we want to see if price is going to hold this area of support, because we have not retested the $78 level, which we have been looking for, because the markets have essentially been choppy for months, given, once again, the macro data, high inflation, unemployment numbers, not just here in the US, but globally. So we have been just experiencing, not ideal trading conditions, let alone investing conditions for crypto itself. So we're sitting here. We want this to hold, given that it has attempted to go lower and has rejected as of now. And we want to see if we're going to get this before we get this. And I know that looks scary. But once again, like I said, we're in the market of relief rallies. And if you guys look left in previous price action history, that was an area that we've popped up to before we fell down. So is it possible for history to repeat itself again? True. Now, given we have to have the ideal conditions for this to happen. If so, that's what I want to see. Rather, we get dumped first before we head there, and or we head there now and then dump, is what's going to be determined by market conditions once again. So guys, that is it for the market overview. Please like, subscribe, and comment below what coins you would like to see for our following week. Keep your eyes on the market. We want to see how the dollar index responds after the big reversal that we saw, where bullish price action continued. Vice versa, what has happened with the crypto markets, where our relief rally was met with resistance and we had followed through bearish price action. So guys, that is our weekly wrap up. I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Happy trading, happy investing.